Good morning. My apologies for not being able to attend today's event. My name is Greg Gundlach. I'm with the American Antitrust Institute, and I'd like to offer these remarks to replace my attendance. Before I begin, I'd like to thank the Ministry of Economy for hosting this event, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, and Niccolo Comini for inviting me to participate, and both the Ministry and OECD for their cooperation and efforts in publishing the report on competition policy in the Mexican grocery retail industry. For those of you who are not familiar with the American Antitrust Institute, we are an independent, non-profit organization devoted to promoting competition that protects consumers, businesses, and society. We serve the public through research, education, and advocacy on the benefits of competition and the use of competition enforcement as a vital component of national and international competition policy. AAI regularly participates in events such as this to offer its perspective and commentary to stakeholders in the competition policy and antitrust community. Given our mission, we are pleased to participate in today's event. In that capacity, I'm very pleased to offer perspective and comment on the 2019 report on competition policy in the Mexican grocery retail industry. I'd like to highlight several aspects of the report that are important and I believe deserve continuing discussion. I'll focus on 6 areas. First, the significance of the grocery retail industry to Mexico's economy. Second, the importance of competition in the industry. Third, the nature of competition occurring in the industry. Fourth, concentration and buyer power as important areas of consideration. Fifth, competition authorities' activities with respect to buyer power. And finally, practices related to buyer power and deserving of further consideration. As the report points out, the grocery industry is a substantial aspect of Mexico's economy. Nearly 30% of every dollar spent by consumers in Mexico is spent on food. By comparison, a citizen in Mexico spends nearly 5 times as much food as a citizen in the United States. Mexico ranks second highest in expenditures among 19 countries that are part of the OECD. As a consequence of this is that the retail grocery industry, and of course prices and service in the industry, play an important role in the overall economy. Given its significance, ensuring that competition is healthy and remains vibrant is critically important. In this regard, the report provides information that should be helpful to those involved with the industry and those responsible for overseeing its competitive vitality. Let me now turn to the report's discussion of competition. The report describes the many different types of retail formats for groceries in Mexico. The 2 main retail channels are traditional stores and modern retailers. Traditional stores include small grocery stores, spots in local street markets, and specialized shops such as bakeries and butcher shops. Modern retailers, on the other hand, include medium and large supermarkets, hypermarkets, warehouse clubs, and convenience stores. Of the amount of food spent by Mexican households, or rather the amount of spent on food by Mexican households, nearly 80% is spent in traditional stores and 20% is spent in modern retailers. However, there is a trend toward modern retailing in Mexico, and as the report points out, this trend is expected to continue into the future. This is a very important observation because, as the report notes, the modern retail channel is heavily concentrated at this time, and in the likelihood that it will also continue. From the standpoint of competition policy and enforcement, the level of concentration found in a market is important for understanding the state of competition and for assessing the ability of firms to adversely affect competition. Without getting too technical, calculations of market concentration involve assessment of the number of firms in a market and their relative strength. A low degree of concentration is where a large number of firms are present, and as a consequence, no one firm can dominate. A high degree of concentration is where a few firms are found, and therefore these firms are in a position to dominate trade. Competition authorities are generally wary of markets that are highly concentrated, given it means that firms in the market are capable of adversely affecting competition. In competition policy parlance, that means they have market power. Given its relationship to market power, concentration is an important measure for those entrusted with developing and enforcing competition policy. The main concern, and particularly in retailing, including in the context of the modern channel for groceries in Mexico, is that large retailers may leverage their power as buyers, in this regard their buyer power, to harm competition and consumers. This can happen in various ways. For example, large retailers may extract price concessions from their suppliers and then refuse to pass these price savings on to consumers in the form of lower prices and better services. Over time, large retailers may also force down supplier prices in ways that jeopardize their suppliers' ability to invest in new products, product improvements, advertising, and other brand-building efforts. Large retailers who also offer their own store brands can also use their power to eliminate or weaken competing brands and thereby strengthen the position and sales of their own brands. Large retailers may also insist on exclusive supply arrangements that create barriers to entry for new suppliers and that can dampen competition overall. Large retailers may also use their position to induce resale price maintenance arrangements that reduce competition across retailers and create higher retail prices on the supplier's products. Large retailers can also use their power to extract unfounded charges, questionable fees, and unfounded payments from suppliers that the retailer in turn profits from. Ultimately, the abuse of buyer power can result in adverse consequences for consumers and society. For example, research suggests that buyer power can lead to lower industry profits, job cutting, stagnated wages, and even flawed products. As pointed out in the report, when and whether a retailer will use its buyer power to engage in abusive conduct is dependent on the circumstances of a specific setting. For example, to the extent that alternative retail outlets are available for suppliers to reach customers, that is, there exists retail competition, concerns for buyer power may not be as great. In such settings, because of the competition from other channels or retailers, large retailers are more likely to pass on to consumers any price savings or other advantages that they secure through their buyer power. In addition, to the extent upstream suppliers also have power, perhaps due to the power of their brands, their size, or other means, they are more likely to counter the bargaining power of a powerful retailer. However, this could result in a situation where both suppliers and retailers are powerful, leading to additional complications and concerns. Given concerns for buyer power, monitoring concentration in Mexico's grocery industry is important, particularly as it relates to the modern channel. As the report documents, there exists a high level of concentration in Mexico's modern grocery retail industry. According to the report, 3 retailers accounted for more than 90% of industry sales in this channel during 2015 rather. This level of concentration is concerning by itself, but it also is concerning given the trend of consumers to increasingly shop in this channel. It is therefore important that this concentration be monitored and where necessary actions be taken to safeguard competition and consumers against any abuses of buyer power. As also described in the report, competition authorities have taken various steps to address increasing concentration in the traditional channel. A number of high-profile mergers that would have increased concentration and raised prices have been successfully challenged. Competition authorities also have a legal framework in place that allows for the investigation of buyer power abuses. Additionally, there exists a voluntary agreement on good commercial practices that includes terms which may be applied to issues involving buyer power. Lastly, local laws and regulations also exist and potentially may be applied to buyer power issues. Going forward, the report identifies a number of practices that appear related to buyer power and therefore are deserving of scrutiny. These practices include unilateral discounts imposed on suppliers by large retailers, and these have been identified as a common practice by suppliers. However, these are contended by retailers to be disappearing from the business landscape. Fines levied on suppliers who are unable to satisfy an order completely, the so-called fill rate, are also reported. However, retailers contend that these fines are usually part of the contract between the parties, and retailers report that they do not delist products if their conditions are not accepted. Logistics costs involving petro imposed on suppliers without negotiation are also mentioned. However, retailers assert that these are separate services and contracts are voluntarily agreed to. Another practice cited are concerns for the conduct of promoters hired by retailers to ensure that a supplier's products are not misplaced in the store. A final practice involves retailers not honoring delivery time slots allocated to suppliers for unloading products at distribution centers. And to this, retailers suggest that a higher degree of coordination would be welcomed. Each of these practices may be related to buyer power and therefore warrant scrutiny to ensure the efficiency of Mexico's grocery retailing industry. To this end, the report offers, I think, useful guidance and should be a helpful resource to all. Thank you.